Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today as we talk about the launch of my new book, The Choice to Leave Abuse. As we start talking about it, I'd like to just make some acknowledgements of people who have helped to get this off the ground and into your hands, where I hope it will do some good. First of all, I want to give my thanks to Cedar Fort Publishing and Media for their support and their help throughout the process. There are also many people I've spoken with as I've gone through the process of creating this book who've been courageous in sharing their stories, their fears, their vulnerabilities, and their successes. And I want to thank every single one of them. I'm also very grateful for the many researchers there are in the field of studying abuse and healing from abuse, for the therapists and counselors who work every day to help those who are experiencing abuse, and to other people who help victims of abuse, like victim advocates and various legal officials. I'm also very grateful to the leadership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for their clarification through church doctrines and policies about how we should respond to abuse. I'm also very thankful to my family for their constant support and guidance, and also for the ways that they inspire me in moving forward and trying to do some good in this world. So thank you to all of you. So who am I and why am I writing about this? Like I said, my name is Dr. Ryan Anderson. I have a PhD in medical family therapy, and my licensure is in marriage and family therapy. I'm also the co-founder of Telos U, which is a program that helps young adults who are struggling to launch into adulthood. I am a regular presenter at many local and national conferences. I've presented at over 50 different conferences around the nation on a variety of topics. I am a researcher, also on a number of different topics, and I am an author. I've written many scientific articles that have been published in scientific journals. I've written textbook chapters and a variety of other things as well. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and very loyal. I have a firm testimony, and I want to be a part of helping people find joy and peace and connection with the Savior through their associations with the church. And I am an advocate for survivors of abuse of all kinds. I have published one other book through Cedar Fort. It's called Screen Savvy, Creating Balance in a Digital World, which is focused on helping people come to understand their relationship with technology and helping to create a healthier and more balanced relationship. But that's not the book we're here to talk about today. Today, we're here to talk about the choice to leave abuse. So who is this book for? I wrote this book with several different audiences in mind. First of all, it's written specifically for people who are concerned that someone they love might be in an abusive relationship. It's also for people who are in an abusive relationship themselves and trying to make sense out of it and figure out what their options are and what they should do. It's also for local church leaders. A lot of times being in the position of a bishop, a branch president, a stake president, a relief society president, an elders quorum president, all of those can be very lonely positions because we're asked to work with very difficult things, and we benefit from good guidance. So this book is for you to help you know how to fulfill your callings and your obligations for those who are under your stewardship. This is also for people who are wanting to learn more about how to work more effectively with abuse, like therapists, legal advocates, even policymakers, but it's generally for anyone who cares about other people and is concerned about the concept of abuse and would like to know what they individually and we as a society can do for people who are being abused. This is written specifically for a Latter-day Saint audience, but it also pulls from general scientific findings that are applicable to everyone, whether they are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints or not. So why did I choose to write this book? Well, some of it has to do with my direct clinical experience. Over the many years that I've been working as a marriage and family therapist, I've had many opportunities to work very directly with people who are in abusive relationships or people who are abusing other people. And that leaves a very profound impact as we see both what doesn't work and what keeps people stuck, and also what actually helps people move forward. I also have many colleagues who work with this, and we've shared ideas with each other and experiences with each other. I also have several loved ones who I care very deeply about, who've gone through very painful experiences of abuse. and this weighs very heavily on my heart. Their well-being and their path to healing is profoundly important to me. And I myself have also experienced several different types of abuse and am in the process of walking through healing for those for myself as well. And when someone has these experiences of facing abuse, both for other people and for themselves, it creates a keen understanding and desire to help reach out and help people understand and help create a path forward for everyone who might be facing the same thing. And in many ways, I found myself resonating with the words found in Alma chapter 29, when he sings about wanting to be an angel. What my greatest hope is that as we learn more about what abuse is, how to prevent it, how to report it, how to respond to it, that we can help make it so that there is less sorrow upon the face of the earth, and that we can reduce and remove the scourge that is abuse from among us. Also, I felt a call to action. Many of us have taken notice that under the guidance of President Russell M. Nelson, there have been a lot of changes in the church as far as policies and procedures, many things which have been very profoundly impactful. And there have been many of them. In fact, from the day that he took office to December of 2020, there were more than 40 major policy changes announced. But one of the things that I found the most interesting is of all of these changes that the Lord seemed to be eager to share with his children, what was the very first one? Well, the very first policy change was an update on the church's policies on responding to abuse, with a focus on prevention, report, and addressing all of these issues. So there have been so many important things addressed, but the first one, the most urgent one, was to make sure that we understand better what to do about abuse. Now, I can't speak for President Nelson or the other members of the First Presidency and the Quorum of the 12 to say exactly why that was. But I do think there's something to be learned about the fact that this was the first. And of course, it brings up the question, well, why are the policy changes needed? Well, they were needed deeply because the experiences that many people have been having for generations when they experience abuse and turn to their local leaders in the church for help is not actually in line with the doctrines and policies of the church around abuse. So these policy changes were made because there is a great deal of suffering that needs to be alleviated and can only be addressed if we collectively change. So I included the serenity prayer on this slide because abuse among us is something that we can change. And therefore we need the knowledge and the courage about how to do it. And that's what the purpose of this book is. Now, what is the evidence that we needed to change? Well, one thing that is very concerning and a little bit depressing is that the incidence of abuse among members of the church, inside of the church, is actually no better than the incidences of abuse in the world at large. In fact, when you take a look at the research and the statistics, it indicates that there's actually a higher rate of domestic violence and abuse happening among members of the church. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that distressing. I would hope that because of our doctrines, our teachings, and the covenants that we make, that there would be a profound difference between the amount of abuse in the church and outside of the church. And I would hope that within the church, there was significantly less, but that is not the case. So let's talk about how common abuse is. In the United States in general, an average of 20 adults are abused per minute, and that totals 10 million adults abused per year. Women experience abuse at a higher rate than men, with 33% of women and 25% of men experiencing severe physical violence from an intimate partner or spouse. Women are at a much more elevated risk of being injured or dying because of domestic abuse. And it's important for us to recognize that they are more vulnerable to this, and therefore they require greater attention and more help. But anyone facing abuse requires and is worthy of and deserves our response. Well, the problem is when we take a look at how the church stacks up, one of the best ways to do that is to take a look at rates of domestic violence in areas where there's a high concentration of members of the church, such as Utah. So, for example, in 2010, 66.7% of the population of Utah was identified as Latter-day Saints. And the rates of domestic violence there were 32.4% of Utah women had experienced some form of domestic violence at some time in their life, whereas the national average was only 28.8%, which is still far too much. But in the church, we are several points higher. And I hope that touches your heart. And I hope that helps you ask the question, why and what can we do about it? Well, how is that possible? Research shows that in societies where there's an effective response to abuse, and that response is consistent, that occurrences of abuse decrease. However, in communities where there's an inadequate, ineffective, or even hostile response to people reporting abuse, that rates increase. So what can we do? This teaches us that, one, as a community, there are ways in which other people are actually doing a better job at responding to reports of abuse than we are. But it teaches us that if we increase our efforts and improve in what we do, we can push down those rates of abuse among Latter-day Saints, which I hope is a goal that we can all embrace and be enthusiastic about. The problem is, when we take a look at historically what people say they have experienced on average when they have reported abuse to local leaders, the responses are not flattering. I don't say this in any way to criticize, but simply to help us take a look at the truth so we can know what we can do differently. A lot of what people reported was saying that they were met with people minimizing what had happened to them or denying it, saying, well, they're a returned missionary. There's no way they can be doing that. But there's such a great elders quorum president. How is it possible that the things you're saying they're doing could be happening? And as a result, since there's a denial around the actual perpetrator of abuse being responsible, there's a tendency to turn around and blame the victim. And along with that, some very anti-doctrinal things tend to be taught, like the idea that it's the victim's religious obligation to stay in the abusive relationship. And oftentimes, people can close ranks around the abuser to try to protect the abuser from accountability and from any responsibility or consequences for the abusive actions that they've been taken. And unfortunately, out of this have come some false traditions in counsel that is given to people who are experiencing abuse. For example, many women report that they're told by their local religious leaders that they are the problem, that they're being homewreckers by bringing this up. And a lot of times there's a reference to them being sexually cold and emotionally unavailable. And that's the reason, supposedly, the abuse is happening to them. And therefore, they've been counseled to dress more attractively, fix their own behaviors, attend the temple more, lose weight, or alter their appearance in some way with the idea that this should stop the abuse. But there's a very big problem with that concept. Abuse isn't about the victim. Abuse is about the abuser. There's nothing the victim does to cause the abuse. And therefore, all of these cosmetic ideas or these suggestions about what the victim can do to stop the abuse are unfortunately misguided because they are not the cause. The abuser is the cause. And only the abuser is in a position to stop the abuse. Unfortunately, some of this frequently given counsel in the past has been that people who report abuse must not do anything that would endanger the abuser's career. And they're told that enduring to the end is part of being Christ-like. Enduring the suffering and the abuse till the end of their lives is what's required of them to keep their covenants. This is false doctrine, but it has been commonly repeated and therefore has worked its way into culture, and that needs to change. And sometimes the idea is that, hey, look, these outbursts, these abusive things are just understandable. They're a response to the stressors of life. But how many people go through stressors of life and do not act abusive? Abuse is not caused by stress. Abuse is not caused by trials. Abuse is caused by things inside the abuser that need to change. And it's important that we kind of keep that in our heart. That being said, there are many, many wonderful examples of local church leaders responding in a way that protects vulnerable people, helps people heal, and is exactly what should be happening. So I'm not saying that nothing is going right, but I am saying that we need to increase these healthy and adaptive responses. And as a part of that, we need to make sure that we understand better and have better guidance and better culture amongst ourselves around this. So as you read the book, The Choice to Leave Abuse, there's a lot of things that I hope you will learn. And my hope is that as we learn better, collectively, we will do better. And in our learning in this book, I will pull from science, from law, from doctrine, from policy. I've put in a lot of work to make sure that I'm providing you the very best information that you can have to guide you in your decision-making around this. So some of the things that you will learn include, what are the church's actual doctrines surrounding abuse and how to prevent it and how we should respond to it? What are the church's policies around abuse? How can we make sure we're following those policies and letting those be our guide in the way that we respond to abuse? How do we recognize abuse? You know, you would think this would be easy, but in a lot of ways, abuse can be very confusing and hard to identify. The more we understand about the different types of abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, social, and even spiritual abuse, the more we know about it, the more likely we are to recognize it, prevent it, and stop it. You will also learn about the effects of abuse, understanding that it's something that impacts all of us, all the way down to our genes, all the way through to our spirits. And if it's not addressed, it can be passed down from one generation to another. But the good news is these effects can be reversed and healed if we learn to respond effectively to abuse. You will learn about the obstacles to leaving abuse, why people have a tendency to stay, and what they need from us to be able to leave a situation where they are continuing to be hurt and enter a situation where they are safe. You'll learn about the process of healing from abuse, both what the person who's been abused can do and what concerned individuals can do to help them along that path. You'll also learn about what real repentance from having abused someone else looks like. This is a difficult path, and it's often very cloudy and misunderstood, but this book will provide clarity about how to walk that path and what is required. There's also lots of guidance given to local church leaders to help you be able to act with confidence and to know that you are doing the right thing in how you help prevent abuse in your stewardship and how you respond to abuse when it occurs. And last but not least, you will learn about stories of real people who have survived abuse and have found a path of healing and liberation that will show you what is possible. If you hear these things and they sound like something you would like to know or someone else you know needs, please consider joining us on our social media page at The Choice to Leave Abuse, or picking up The Choice to Leave Abuse wherever you like to buy Latter-day Saint books. My hope is that working together, we can answer the prophet's call to respond better, to protect those who are at risk, and to bring about healing and a society where our people are safe, believed, and brought upon the shoulders of their congregations to a place of safety and happiness out of the darkness of whatever abuse they have had to face.